Warning: please note that some of the archives used in this program for complementary and historical purposes contain outdated racially insensitive language. These do not reflect the translator's opinion in any way. Listeners' discretion is advised. Please enjoy the broadcast.
Okay, everybody rolling?
First, if we may, why aren't you an astronaut now?
Well, I couldn't begin to tell you. I have no comment for that question. I don't know.
Captain, did you write a 15-page report outlining racial pressure brought against you in aerospace school?
Well, I prefer not to answer that question either. I've apprised certain people in the Department of Defense of certain occurrences during my training at Edwards, and that's all I'll have to say about that particular point. There's one point that was brought out to me once earlier today about an article in the magazine that stated that I said that a certain officer told me that Negroes should not even be in uniform, and this particular point I'd like to strongly point out that nobody ever said this to me verbally.
Have they ever said anything like that to you?
Well, I refuse to comment on that point.
Are you now, in fact, completely out of the astronaut program? Is there a possibility of you ever being back in?
I don't know. I don't have any idea.
Well, my name is Ed Dwight. I'm from Kansas City, Kansas, which is one of the states east of here. And I joined the Air Force when I was 18 years old and became a pilot in the Air Force. After 7 years, I was selected to be the first African-American astronaut candidate. And I did not go up in space. This is back in 1960. And I was appointed by President Kennedy to be the first African-American astronaut. And I did not travel into space, but I left the military, I left the Air Force and became a sculptor. And so I've been a sculptor for the last 50 years, and I do Black History memorials all over the United States, and that's what I've been doing for the last 60 years. And recently, after 60 years of doing work as a sculptor, I was asked if I wished to go into space. And so I did. I went into space and became the oldest person that ever traveled in space. And so that's where I am right now.
Second part: sculptor artist, thoughts on African American history, flight to space, and legacy.
And I had several businesses when I first left the Air Force. I had about 3 or 4 businesses out, and then later on, I've always been an artist on the side, since I was a kid. And so at the age of 45, it sounds crazy, but I was offered an opportunity to become a sculptor. Well, I didn't just do sculpture. I painted. I've been painting as an artist all my life. And I got a scholarship out of high school to the Kansas City Art Institute. I wanted to be an artist, not a pilot, until I found out that they were letting African Americans fly. On the front page of one of the papers was a black pilot from my hometown that was in Korea, and they got shot down. And I said, oh my God, I didn't know that they were letting blacks actually fly. And so I went and applied for pilot training and passed all the tests. And that's why I ended up becoming a Air Force pilot, because as an artist, I didn't know whether I could make a living as an artist, okay? And obviously, if I would join the Air Force, I could retire 20 years later, retire and make a living and make money and do all those things, you know. And so that's why I took art and moved it to the back. But I kept painting all the rest of that time. I kept, I kept my hand in painting because it was just so natural to me, you know. And you asked me why I picked sculpture, because with painting you can only your audience is limited. You have to show inside of museums, and it hangs on the wall, and you gotta either if you go. For people who go to museums, it's limited to those people who go to museums and stuff. But public art is different because it attracts people who are walking by, and people can drive by in their car and they can see it. But it was a better platform to tell the stories that I wanted to tell. And if I had done that with painting, a whole bunch of people wouldn't see it. Only people who go to museums would see it. And so that's the reason why I ended up selecting sculpture. But the other easy answer to it was it was so natural to me. I never had an art lesson in my life. I mean, where somebody told me this is how you sculpt, and this, because I'm self-taught. The governor, Lieutenant Governor Brown, he's the one that got me into art. He's the one that called me into his office. He had seen some art that I had done from my house. And he called me into his office to do the sculpture of him. And I had never sculpted before. And so I told him no, because I'd never done that before. and he encouraged me to go figure it out and learn how to do it. He said, go to the library. I told him I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to sculpt. So he said, go to the library and get a book and teach yourself. Which is what I did. And I could, with my engineering background, I could see how it all worked, how the faces work, and so I engineered the face. So it made it easier for me because I could use engineering to make somebody's face, because everybody's face is built within certain limits. You know, the width of your eye is the same distance as the space between your eyes. It's the same distance, and your ears, the bottom of your nose and your eyebrows, that's how tall your ears are. And so I studied all that stuff. So it was easy for me to engineer the human body and do it with engineering to make sure I was right. Because we, like it or not, with your height, there's certain there's certain scales about how long your arms would be, how wide your shoulders are, and I can measure all that. And every human being has a group of engineered measurements, like it or not. And so it was easy for me to build, make human beings, and so I could engineer that, and it just made it easy. I didn't have to worry about having somebody's arms too long or the hands too big and all that stuff. So, and I spent a lot of time studying that, and the average person doesn't know that. So sculpting was more natural for me, and like I say, painting has limits. Sculpture doesn't have any limits at all. You can do it inside or outside or whatever. And that was the first sculpture I ever did in my life, like that. once I got that one done, then he went out and got me a lot more to do, so I decided, well, maybe that's what I should be doing. So, and the reason given to me as to why I should was because blacks in America had no history about what they did in America, because whites discovered America and blacks came over here as slaves, and and so there was no reason for the larger white population to make statues or record anything that slaves or ex-slaves did. I mean, why bother, And so I was offered an opportunity to make sculptures to tell a different history of black African Americans in America. What ended up happening, a lot of people came to me and assumed, because there are a lot of artists that are homosexual, and as I traveled around, a lot of it had to do with my size, and they did accuse me, and some were disappointed that I wasn't homosexual, and that kind of rubbed me the wrong way. The idea that because there were so many artists in the business of art, that in history as well, that were in fact homosexual. So the assumption was that that's the only thing I can think of, was being accused of being homosexual. And I kind of railed against that. I said, why would you assume that I'm homosexual? And then a lot of my shows, when I did the gallery shows, a lot of homosexuals showed up, and in a couple of instances, they were fighting over me. And I saw these guys fighting. What are you doing? And they were arguing as to who's going to take me home. Of course. And I'm saying, and I had to explain, I'm not gay. I said, I'm not going home with any of you guys. Okay, so knock it off. But those kind of things have happened. But as far as me saying anything that against homosexuals, the whole idea I'm going to defend myself or not, but yes, I do admit that it came up a lot where people assumed that I was homosexual, and some of them were really upset that I wasn't. And so you have to consider that, and maybe my defense of saying hell no, that maybe came off that I didn't like homosexuals or something, but what the hell? If you're accused of something that you're not, that's just dealing the truth.
And whereas Dwight, despite adversity, has become one of the most prolific sculptors of African American history and culture, having been commissioned to create over 130 monuments and sculptural memorials across the U.S. and Canada, while operating from his studio in the great city of Denver, Colorado. And whereas the city and county of Denver joins in celebrating Dwight's multifaceted career and makes him an inspiration and role model to many people. Now, therefore, I, Michael B. Hancock, Mayor of the City and County of Denver, Colorado, by virtue of authority vested in me, do hereby officially proclaim November 4th, 2022, to be known as Dwight Day in Denver, Colorado.
So, you have been doing plenty of sculptures and tributes to the African American history during the last decades of your life. About 20,000 gallery pieces, right? And you just told me 132 memorials all across North America.
Right.
So it is really a big deal for you. Would you say it's a way for you to fight the racism that you suffered all your life, and this perseverance and determination that you keep by doing those sculptures still now, and doing so much of them during so much years?
Right.
Is this for you
Right, not a revenge, but a way to, how could I say it?
Okay. Well, no, you do things. You know, people kind of do things out of necessity and the urge. Because if you, you know, how many sculptures, how many sculptures is enough? You know, and you go back in history and some of the high volume sculptures in history, nobody questions. You know, in history, nobody's ever questioned the Picasso, for instance. That guy did thousands and thousands of pieces of art, and did a tribute to him. But in my case, it's it's probably unfinished business, and the market. If the market is demanding more, then what do? You say, well, okay, that's enough. I'm not going to do any more. And the answer is no, because I get right now to this day, if I could add 20 years to my life, I would do another 130 sculptures, monuments, because of the demand. Every time I pick up the phone, just about somebody wants me to do another memorial. Every city has called me. Not every city that has called me does. We got 3 we want you to do. We got 2 we want you to do. We got you know, and I could go on and within the next 5 years do another 50 memorials. You know, if I had my old staff here and had all my big operation that I had back in, you know, a couple of years ago, because I had a lot of people, a lot of room, and I could manage everything. I had my site, of course, and I could work on 3 or 4 at a time. And that's how I got so many, because I wasn't doing it one at a time. I would be working on 3 with 3 different cities. I'd be working on 3 different more, 3 different cities, 3 different subjects, you know, and I'd unveil them, just get them unveiled, and then start working on 3 more.
Do you think you would have done it with the same dedication if you had been in space in the 60s? And if
No,
no?
That's the key to the whole thing, because once I keep saying it in my head, I'm glad I didn't go into space. Because had I gone into space, I would have been living on that for the rest of my life, making speeches and public appearances and you know, and talking to kids, and it would, like most of the astronauts, that, you know, 23 black astronauts, and most of them are doing nothing.
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly what almost all every astronauts, retired astronauts, are doing.
Right. You know, they just say, I've done it. I don't want to do anymore. And of course, that's not me. I'm glad that I didn't go into space 60 years ago. Since then, you know, I've done 132 memorials and monuments to black accomplishment in America, so that people could go to parks and Capitol grounds and city squares and see art that high art, not a little stuff, big stuff that, you know, that African Americans did in America, and it's been very, very, very successful. I have them all over the country, and right now I'm actually working on a memorial for Normandy, because of the black soldiers that fought during World War II. We're designing a memorial to go on Normandy Beach, and it's going to honor the black soldiers that fought in World War II. And the biggest problem is raising the money, because it's going to cost several $1 million to do it. And so we've been talking to the French government and the Pentagon over on this side. We've been having conversations about the memorial, to make sure that it's accurate, to make sure that it's right, and to make sure that we have the space to put it. I've been introduced to one site over there that we've been working on and designing the three sections, one for the medics at Normandy Beach. There are a few black medics on Normandy Beach that saved 82 lives, and then there were Tuskegee Airmen that fought there, and then there was another group of blacks. It was called the Red Ball Express. They supplied they were up north of Normandy, is where they launched out of it, and they've supplied all the ammunition and supplies and medical supplies and food and stuff for the soldiers as they went across France, to get to Germany. That's one of the big projects.
Okay.
I got 2 or 3 that I'm working on, but yes,
Okay.
that's one of the big projects we're working on right now.
You're still listening to Radio Campus, and we are here in Denver, Colorado with Ed Dwight, former test pilot, first black astronaut candidate, and now sculptor and artist. Let's talk about the flight to space you did on board the Blue Origin NS-25 mission. It was on May 19, 2024, because eventually you did fly to space. I can see you even have a shirt, Blue Origin, right now.
Oh, yeah, I didn't know that, bro. Okay.
Well, can you just tell us about how did all of that happen? Like the organization of all of this. Like, did you get a call one day?
No.
Or how did it happen exactly?
No, it started happening. Well, first of all, once I started doing art, NASA immediately I got involved with NASA doing art for NASA, and they started naming asteroids after me, and they started flying my sculptures into space. I was on the Orion mission, my art, and so when the astronauts came down, they'd immediately come to my studio and bring me a flag, or bring me my art back that I shipped into space, and I had to sign papers that I couldn't sell that art, because they had been in space, and and so NASA, there's been a connection with NASA the whole time that I've been an artist, which is kind of strange, and NASA has honored me time and again. So it started when Charlie Bolden became the head of NASA, and he was the first black, obviously, to head NASA, and of course, the conversation started about how are we going to get Ed into space, and that's been going on for years. We got to get Ed into space, and thank God, with NASA, there was no way for me to because of the way NASA's structured, for me to get into NASA and do a space flight, even on the shuttle. I mean, that wasn't going to happen. And so once these platforms got licensed, these civilian platforms got licensed, like Blue Origin and the others, then everybody started talking about which one should we use to get Ed into space. And so it started, and then we got more of a conversation and more of a conversation. And Leland Melvin, who he and Charlie Bolden, who was the head of NASA, got together and said, we got to get, we got to start the conversation and get Ed into space. And so the whole thing, so I agreed to it. The whole thing was they thought I wasn't going to agree to it, And then when I said, yeah, let's do it, it was a matter of how soon can they get up there, and so it just started falling into place.
But it was really impossible for NASA to make you fly on the shuttle back at this time because, for example, John Glenn, the first American in orbit, he went back to space and board the shuttle while he was 80 almost at this time.
Yeah, right. Well, I thought about that, but the easy part of John Glenn going was that he was at NASA and he'd already gone through, and a lot of it was about training. You know, how do you train somebody to go into space? And here you got John Glenn, who you know, who was a super duper astronaut, you know, from the publicity point of view, was early in the game. And it was perfectly natural for him to just put a suit back on and you know, and go fly, you know. But in my case, you know, I had not gone through all of the health requirements that NASA would require. And they had to pick a platform that was didn't depend on health, you know, because you're only going to be up there a few minutes. So if you had a bad heart, it was going to be affected. If you had some other issues, the mission was so short that health wasn't to be worried about. And they, you know, and hanging around with me, I didn't act like I was an old guy. And they assumed that, well, Dwight, he's running around building memorials and the guy's all energetic. So let's just go with it. And so we did. I really wasn't worried about all of those things because I'd gone through so much in my flight test career. I mean, I had cheated death. I mean, there were 5 singular times that I should be dead because I escaped death on 5 separate occasions as a test pilot. Okay, and so this idea about fearing dying and stuff like that didn't bother me because I didn't think I was going to live past 50 because by 3 years out, after we got out of test pilot school, of those 17 guys, I have the picture you showed me there. I have a copy of that picture in my archives, and I got a thing as to when they died. Within 3 years, only 7 of us were left, and I have a little arrow, and I have the date as to when these guys died, and I had that picture hanging on my wall in my other studio for a very long time to remind me. So death has never bothered me because I figured I should have been dead a long time ago. So I never feared that. And so to going up into space for whatever, I mean, it was just another thing. The only thing new was where the power was coming from. Instead of the power being behind me in an airplane, it was down below me. And when the rocket went off, first of all, it scared me because I didn't think it was going to be that loud. And we had these big earplugs, these personalized earplugs that they made for us, you know. But it was unbelievable, the noise. And it sounded like the whole thing exploded. You know, I was a little worried about that. I said, wait a minute, this damn thing just blew up underneath me. But once we got going in the air, I rationalized that, okay, that was new to me because I had never been on the up end of a rocket. And then the second time that startled me was when the capsule left the booster and their explosive bolts. And my seat was right above one of the explosive bolts that explode and separate the capsule from the rocket. And when that went off, that scared the hell out of me because I didn't expect it. But after I saw what was going on, there were 2 explosions, and after and I saw the booster drift out like this, and it was just amazing to me. They go, man, I said, man, these guys got it going on. This is really cool. That's how they engineered that so that this the capsule kept going up, and then the booster all. What amazed me is how they kept it straight up and down. It just moved away and just started going down, and then the capsule went on up in 0G and all that stuff happened after that. And then when we left the atmosphere, that was astounding to me as well, because I thought it would be a gradual from the atmosphere. It would be the light and everything would be gradual to go into space, and it's not. It's a sharp line that cuts off the atmosphere from outer space. And to see that line was just amazing to me.
You were quoted as saying that the Air Force had discriminated against you for the astronaut program, and I saw that on a wire service this morning. Do you feel this is true, or does NASA make the selection of the astronauts?
Well, I don't recall ever saying that the Air Force is discriminating against me in the astronaut program, because the Air Force doesn't have an astronaut program as such. We have a military space program on the drawing boards, I guess. But right now, we don't have a military space program. As far as NASA is concerned, they have their own program. They have a selection process that they put everybody through. And as far as the inner workings, as far as why I'm not at NASA, I won't comment on that at all.
Then what is your official status right now?
I'm an experimental test pilot at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in the bomber section.
Is that the duty you wanted?
No.
What did you want?
Well, won't comment on that either.
Do you feel that what's happened to you is a setback for civil rights opportunities in this country?
No, I would rather not comment on that.
Everything that's happened to me happened for a purpose. Even my being selected there was a purpose behind that. And ultimately, the purpose was fulfilled, because we have 23 black astronauts followed, and they were successful. So the whole idea of blacks going into space, where they originally thought the rule was no way, that this white man's stuff, no way, there's no room for any blacks to be involved in this, because this is real hero stuff. This is real discovery. And we can't let black folks be involved in real stuff. And so what I did, the whole my presence in that program really opened a conversation about, is that a fact? The space belonged to white people, and it was proven that under the right circumstances, if blacks could get the right training. But think about it. It was 20 years from the time it was announced that the first black went up in space. Think about it, all that time in there about President announcing me, and then Guy and Bluford going into space. It was 20 years, almost to the month. And that's really scary stuff. So what happened was, in that 20-year time, that enough blacks got educated. They got all the stuff that they needed in that 20-year period of time. But it took 20 years for that to happen. For them to go to the right schools, to get the right flying time, and to get the right atmosphere for America to allow a black to go into space. So that's what's important that people miss about my being appointed up here, and something really happening. And it gave America time to train a group of blacks to go into space. But it had to start someplace, and hell, I started it. So I served my purpose. I'm the most well-known black person that nobody's ever heard of. And so there are a lot of people around that are trying to change that. They say, this guy, and that's because of me only, because I never publicized myself. If I had an agent, a publicity agent, for everything I've done, if they had started publicizing me for all these 50 years, and I would have been, the most well-known artist in the history. But that didn't happen, and it's not my fault because I wasn't self-promoting. I didn't care whether the people knew it or not, but I was just doing what had to be done, and not promoting myself while doing all this stuff, because every one of those big memorials should have been an event. It was all over the news. Ed Dwight unveils another memorial. And I could have done that if I had a publicity agent all these years, all these 50 years. And with people following me around and all that kind of stuff. And on the speaking circuit, been talking all this time, having open studios where people could come in all the time and, and take pictures and, stuff like that. And I didn't do any of that. It just happened that way. I mean, there are people that are trying to change that now because they want, especially after this last flight, there are a lot of people around that want to change all that. And then, everybody likes a discovery, and all of a sudden, America and the world has discovered there's a guy in Denver, Colorado, that's made a whole bunch of memorials, and that same guy just went up into space. Wow, where did that come from? And who is that guy? And why don't we know about him before? And it's my fault. I didn't do the job of publicizing all these years what I was doing, because I was doing things that were noteworthy and newsworthy. Everything I was doing, every speech I gave was newsworthy. Every memorial that I finished was newsworthy, but it wasn't in the news, So, but now it doesn't bother me to the extent I just, I want to let the world now do what the world has to do, what the world thinks it has to do, rather. And if that's on the schedule, fine, but I'm gonna die like everybody else and get buried, and maybe some of these things people will remember, and maybe some of they won't, But I served my purpose on earth. That's the key to the whole thing. That I was put here for a purpose, and I pretty much served that purpose. That's more than a lot of people can say.
Okay, so just to summarize, you were first one of the bestest pilots in the USA, then selected as the first black astronaut candidate at Kennedy administration's request. Then Kennedy died and the project fell through. You were then forced to leave the USAF because of racism before getting to NASA. After the USAF, you changed your career path and returned to your artist roots by becoming a famous sculptor that you are still now by making tributes of African American history figures. And you finally make it to space a few months ago on board what we call a tourist flight. Your life is kind of unique. I think no one else on Earth lived what you lived. You even wrote your own biography that we have right now with us in 2009, but that was 15 years ago and you went to space ever since. So with all of that, my very last question would be, how would you like to be remembered? Like, what legacy would you like to have on the future, on the people? If you had one last message to mankind, what would it be?
I think about that, but people are going to make up their own minds, and there's not a thing I can do, because now it's very hard for me, because I'm going around the country getting keys to cities and getting awards, and it's just starting, and I say, okay, thank you for honoring me, you know. But what my legacy, I've got 100 and some pieces of public art that people, and they'll be reminded, especially when after I die, every one of those pieces of public art that I did, people are going to be reminded that Dwight did that, you know, and so that's self-fulfilling. I mean, that's something that's going to be natural for people to go visit my memorials, and they're going to say, well, you know, that guy Dwight, and he did all these other things, but this is one of his pieces of art. But that's going to happen all by itself, and there's nothing I can do about that to change that. But about being remembered, when it did, you know, it's hard to, you know, figure out, well, what does this guy feel now that everybody's talking about him? You know, but me being very dead, it won't bother me one way or another. I'll be pleased that I did enough that in these isolated incidents, that when somebody has a piece of my art in their house, somebody will come in and say, this is an Dwight piece, by the way. You know, and so I hope what's left on earth, mainly my family, feel good about that. Feel, you know, that they had an association with me and my extended family, because I got a lot of people that are very, very close to me, and they're almost like an extended family. They worry about me. They call me all the time. Nelson Mandela is a perfect example. I did a sculpture for him. He ended up owning 5 of my sculptures, you know. And he called me once a month. After we became fast friends, here this giant of a man would call me once a month to say, how are you doing? Do you need anything? And if there's anything that I can do for you, let me know. And I had his phone number, and no matter where it was in the world, he would call me once a month to wish me well. And that was so important to me, that here this great man took out the time. And so I looked at that, and why would that great man do that? You know, why would he take the time to call Ed Dwight? You know, and I've had other people that do the same kind of thing that are really, really great people that they don't call me once a month like he did, but the occasion comes up, you know, and they're very, very proud and all that kind of stuff. And all that stuff is kind of important to me while I'm living. And I hope it's important to the family after I'm gone, because they're the only alive remembrance of me is my family, people who are very close to me. So that's my answer, long-winded answer to your question.
Many years ago, the great British explorer George Mallory, who was to die on Mount Everest, was asked why did he want to climb it. He said, because it is there. Well, space is there, and we're going to climb it. And the moon and the planets are there, and new hopes for knowledge and peace are there on the most hazardous and dangerous and greatest adventure on which man has ever embarked. Thank you.
This show is available on replay on our website allins.radiocampus.org.